greening of Australia coming from, and it's a credit to the Rotary Club, long-term benefits that can be gained. 80 of these out of all this. Thank you for my opportunity to be here today, and thank you for... And they grow very hard timber.
In Newcastle today, Trades Hall said Mr Greiner is hell-bent on the complete destruction of unions.
He wants to eliminate them, he wants to separate them from their constituency, that's their members, so that the members are left to the vagaries of negotiating directly with an employer.
Peter Barrick says the unions aren't opposed to enterprise bargaining, but says workers can't be left to fend for themselves on such important issues as wages and conditions. Trades Hall believes the historic legislation will have little impact.
I don't think employers in the Hunter Valley who are deeply involved in microeconomic reform at the workplace, with the cooperation of the union movement, are going to want to get into industrial confrontation.
But the Master Builders Association believes the legislation gives workers who wanted to dump the union a chance to get out. Norm Steep says his organisation has had a number of inquiries about enterprise bargaining. He believes it will lead to a drop in union membership numbers. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Professor Hawkins released a media statement saying the future of the Armidale and Lismore campuses of the University of New England lay apart if they are to develop their full potential. He says the UNE network was never meant to persist. Professor Hawkins says the two campuses articulate different missions and the continued amalgamated institution will disadvantage the Armidale campus. UNE Armidale is holding a referendum of its academic and general staff and students to evaluate preferences for restructuring the university. It's expected there'll be strong support for continued links with the Orange Agricultural College and the UNE Coffs Harbour Centre. Professor Hawkins was unavailable for further comment today. His office said he's overseas. Academics at the Armidale campus were in conference today over the latest developments, and students want a decision made.
It was decided upon unanimously by the student presidents across the network that it was time for a restructuring of the university and time for Lismore and Armidale to sever links.
Population projections for the West Lakes area into the next decade point to 40,000 more road users cramming onto Main Road 217 through Toronto unless a bypass road is built in the meantime. Council has had a site bounded by the now disused rail corridor and the Fennell Bay Bridge in mind for the past 10 years. According to the Toronto Wetlands Group, the 7-hectare site is a natural oasis for 60 species of birds, including nesting swans, and is an asset both to the community and the area's ecosystem.
This particular wetlands is very valuable. It has a large egret rookery and it serves to filter nutrients and pollutants from going straight into Lake Macquarie.
The Wetlands Group has made presentations to council, local business and schools and claims to be gaining support for the retention and eventual low-key development of the area as a recreation and education centre.
We're saying to council that what they should do is look now at alternative road routes to the west of Toronto.
You're listening to Tourist Information Radio on 108 FM. On the
The organisers of Hunter Valley Tourist Radio had something to celebrate when the news service hit the airwaves this morning. And it may not look like much, but this is its latest station. It's one of 3 transmitters that will pulse continuous recorded information from a solid-state chip about the area's history and attractions such as restaurants and vineyards. Road signs direct drivers to turn to FM 108 as they enter broadcast range. Tourists can also pull up in information bays and tune to other channels offering a radio billboard service for a particular locality. The service's promoters say it's an inexpensive way to help put country areas on the map.
I've driven most of Australia through little towns, hundreds of towns I can't even remember the name of. I'd love to have known the history of each of those little towns as I went through, and this is the opportunity. I've already had inquiries from Lake Macquarie, from Morpeth, which is a lovely little historical town. It's crying out for this, and we'll be going further up in the next couple of weeks up into Scone and Muswellbrook.
It's believed that cockroaches have been on Earth for at least 250 million years. The lifespan of a cockroach is about 2 to 4 years, but in that time a female cockroach can lay up to 50,000 eggs.
Cockroaches are reputed to be able to survive a nuclear holocaust. You can freeze them and thaw them out a year later if you need to. You could put 240 volts from the power point through a cockroach for 15 minutes, take it away and he'd get up and walk away again.
Greg Jeffries says he's come up with something that can kill them. Last year he was chosen as Queensland's Inventor of the Year for coming up with this contraption. The zapper, as it's called, runs on electricity. A pellet is placed in the machine which attracts the cockroach. Once inside, the cockroach is zapped with 6,000 volts.
So far, it's only been South African cricketers who've been allowed on Aussie turf since the relaxing of sporting bans. But the hub of the Hunter Invitational has attracted two-time South African Masters winner Cyril Lahana.
He's coming over, he says, for the experience, but he's got to be pretty good. We've got a young fellow coming, Mike Kernaghan from New Zealand. We don't know much about Michael, but we do know that he's won a string of Dunedin singles titles.
Local favourite in the high calibre field is two times Hub of the Hunter winner Dennis Dalton.
Judging on the people who are in it, it would be the strongest I've ever played in, yes.
The three-day event takes in dressage, cross-country and show jumping, and today was a true test of speed and endurance. And what a demanding event it is. First up, a trotting section over approximately 5 kilometres, which leads straight into a steeplechase where 8 fences must be negotiated over 3 kilometres at breakneck speed. Then a second trotting section for a further 7 kilometres, ending with a well-earned 10-minute rest. But that little jaunt is only a prelude to the ultimate test for horse and rider. Just over 6 kilometres of galloping with 24 extremely difficult and imposing cross-country fences to negotiate. Stationed around the course are vets who keep a constant eye on all competitors, and each horse is subject to a stringent test at the end of the event. For the rider, it's a Radox bath to prepare for tomorrow's show jumping. It was a perfect day for professional surfing with clear skies and a solid 1.5 metre swell. There was an upset early when Kingscliff's Kylie Webb defeated world champion Wendy Botha. She met Pam Burridge in semi-final 1 and the former title holder proved too strong. On the other side of the draw, Vanessa Osborne was cutting a swathe through the seeded surfers. She caught the wave of the final and left Burridge needing a big score with seconds remaining. An untimely wipeout gave Osborne her first professional win. In the men's event, Damien Hardman faced Wollongong rookie Jake Spooner in the semi-finals. Both turned in brilliant performances, but Hardman's experience made the difference. In semi-final 2, American Kelly Slater showed the big crowd why he's the hottest prospect in modern surfing. Manly's Rob Bain took up the challenge with some wild moves of his own, but there was no denying the youngster. He carried his explosive form into the final, but struggled to find decent waves. Damien Hardman was patient and professional, picking the better waves and punctuating them with heavy manoeuvres. He took the title by less than 1 point. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
The final stage of the Autumn Lodge retirement village at Rosemont was completed with the help of a $564,000 grant from the federal government. The balance of $800,000 came from local funds. There are 2 blocks fronting an open courtyard. Each unit has 8 beds.
We're particularly pleased with the architectural design, which helps to improve the family atmosphere that we try to foster here.
The village now boasts of 52 beds for hostel-type accommodation, and there are also 40 self-care apartments. In total, Rosemont provides retirement living for more than 100 people on a 5-hectare block.
Scientific police and detectives went to the TAB branch on Main Road, Toukley, within minutes of the robbery being reported. An employee told them he was opening the front door at 8 a.m. when a man pressed an object against his back, saying he had a gun. The victim was forced to turn off an alarm, then open a safe at the rear of the premises.
He was then ordered not to view the offender, and the offender took him to the back of the shop, and where he tied his legs and tied his hands behind his back. He then gagged him with a piece of rag and put a blindfold on him.
Although still bound hand and foot, the victim managed to free his gag and struggle to a phone, which he dialed behind his back. Police say the victim wasn't able to give them a description of the bandit, who made off with more than $14,000. They're seeking witnesses who may have seen the man entering or leaving the TAB or any unfamiliar vehicles in the area at the time of the hold-up. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
It was the Boomerang's revenge for their loss to the Magpies in the 1991 Grand Final. Boomerangs thundered home to defeat a tired Glen Innes outfit. Many of their tries were set up by Boomerang prop John Craigus, who dominated play. The only nail-biting point in the match came in the final 24 minutes, with the scores locked at 16-all following penalty goals. In other matches, Inverell were too good for Uralla, defeating them 30-26. Gyra beat YCW, and Armidale were too good for Moree.
It looked placid enough today, but dangerous currents run deep at Barooby Point. Local fishermen, surfers and residents have all done their bit to save exhausted swimmers from treacherous rips at the increasingly popular but unpatrolled beach.
There's too many people risking their lives to save others.
They don't realise what the sea is like. It's not like Nelson Bay where you can just go into flat water. They get in here and suddenly their float with a child in it is about a mile at sea. And then what do you got? We've got no rubber duckies, we've got nothing. What we have are local people that's getting on my age, around the 70s, that have been ex-lifesavers and still very strong swimmers that spend the Saturday and Sunday here on the beach just watching children. And many times I've seen some close calls.
A vigilant CB radio operator alerted rescue authorities when a yacht sank just kilometres from the beach last week. A lone yachtsman was plucked to safety by helicopter.
We've had 5 boats that I've actually seen myself hit bottom, including the one 3 days ago and then the one 5 days ago. But it's not the boatman's fault. The weather can change so quickly.
6 children were recently swept out to sea while on a church picnic.
4 of them got back in, but 2 girls were caught in a real bad rip out there. But the quick thinking of surfboard riders ended up plucking the 2 girls and brought them back in. But the poor daddy, he was sort of really anxious because he got caught in a rip too and he couldn't save his daughters.
Residents have formed a committee to lobby the Surf Lifesaving Association and Council for a surf club. They're circulating a petition, raising support and funds. Council will consider the matter in a fortnight's time. Andrew Lobb reporting for NBN News. The advisory centre is the bright idea of Sydney Electricity, which supplies more than 100,000 customers on the Central Coast. It's the shopfront to a $30 million business showing the latest wares in electrical appliances, energy-efficient home heating, cooling and cooking products. Opened by Energy Minister Robert Webster, it's the first of 3 such centres and, in line with the government's reform plan of the electricity supply industry, it will be open on Friday nights and Saturday mornings for the convenience of the area's many commuters. The Central Coast is the fastest growing region in Sydney Electricity's supply area, with 3,500 new connections each year.
For thousands of motorists who rely daily on this link route to the F3 freeway, the Cessnock turn-off is currently the end of the road. The road carries freeway traffic to and from the New England and Pacific highways, but it was closed after a bridge culvert at Mulbring collapsed under the pressure of surging floodwaters on Friday. While Wallace Creek has returned to a calm trickle, Roads and Traffic Authority employees and contractors have been working to repair one of the region's busiest routes. Nearby residents say the road's closure has meant a blissful respite from the usual rumble of trucks, but it's created a new problem: isolation.
To be able to go to work is take a vehicle around the other side, which meant going around through Curry, Barnsley and back to Freena's Waterhole. I've left it there. I've got a vehicle this side so that I can just walk across the bridge to be able to get to work.
With freeway traffic being detoured through Toronto, the road closure has put the brakes on badly needed passing trade for Cessnock businesses.
Well, effectively it's dropped the turnover by about $1,500 a day, possibly about 30% of our trade.
Cessnock Mayor Marie Callaghan says it's not the first time the road's closure has created traffic chaos. This latest repair job is expected to cost tens of thousands of dollars. A spokesman for the RTA says the road could be closed until Thursday, and even then only one lane is expected to be open. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The battle lines are drawn for the clash in New Zealand. It will be a special game for John Schuster, the great All Black centre, who made the tough decision to leave the amateur code 2 years ago, walking away from the then World Rugby Champions. The move to another code shocked the Kiwi officials, but Schuster says he'll have plenty of support when he runs on as a leaguey on his home turf.
There'll be guys, some old mates in there I played union with, and got some family and just the guys I've been associated with in union and that. I'm sure they'll roll along and give the teams a bit of support.
Sam Stewart, just back from a promotional tour for the game, says it will be the surge league needs in New Zealand. He claims the Kiwis just can't get enough of the Winfield Cup.
And I think we were looking at between 18 and 20,000 at Carwell Park, and 20,000 is the maximum that ground will take.
A dream trip to the Barrier Reef became a nightmare for the three-man crew on board Wat Yacht, a 12-metre steel sloop one day out of Sydney. Just after 2 a.m, a building southerly gale unleashed 100 km/h winds on the boat.
We got slapped down by this gust of wind that kept on going and ripped our sails, and we lost the spinnaker. It was just the waves all of a sudden just built. They seemed like to come from behind.
One crewman was hit on the head by the boat's boom. Emergency fuel reserves spilled, sails and equipment were washed overboard. With the yacht being driven into the notorious Stockton Bight, the men considered abandoning ship using sailboards carried on deck.
That was the first thing we thought of, the windsurfers. We're going to unhook them and just ride in.
The crew opted to stay with the boat and clung on until first light, when they alerted the Coast Guard.
We were that close to the beach we could see the sand, the colour of the sand, and the size of the breakers. We were inside the breakers, so that's when we got a bit worried.
An outgoing tide helped carry the boat offshore. Its crew managed to set a sail and head for sheltered waters at Port Stephens. The gale caught up with the Sydney to Mooloolaba yacht race, dismasting King's Cross, which headed for shelter at Laurelton. 3 other boats withdrew at Coffs Harbour. Crews yet to regain their land legs reported an exhilarating run up the coast.
We lost the battens out of the main in a knockdown.
One of those computers that tells you the top speed the boat's ever done. I used to read 13.5 knots, now it reads 15.4.
The remainder of the fleet is expected to reach Mooloolaba by the early hours of tomorrow morning. And traffic is again flowing on Nelson Bay Road at Port Stephens, where the wind blew down a power pole at Saltash. 44,000 volt lines crashed onto the Nelson Bay Road, blacking out the area and blocking traffic for most of the day.
It was congratulations all round from Simon's Hunter teammates with his selection for the Barcelona Olympics.
I'd have to say it was the greatest feeling of my life. I was told I did a backflip, like Jono, better than Jono Seaven did, when I saw the time. So yeah, I was really, really happy with myself.
The Belmont North swimmers 5 hours a day in the pool, 6 days a week have paid off with selection for the 200 metres butterfly.
He's got the capabilities of breaking the world record for 200 fly. I think he's got a terrible amount of talent, but he's also going to have to put it together by then.
Simon says Olympic selection has been his dream since he began swimming 8 years ago. But the dreams of former Olympian and Commonwealth swimmer Donna Proctor have been shattered, missing out despite finishing 4th in the World Championships last year. The trouble is the squad is selected purely on the results of the Australian titles and selection trial.
Donna recorded times in the last 12 months that would have got her into the team, but something went wrong with the preparation, and at the moment Donna and I haven't got a clue.
23-year-old Proctor will decide her future in the next few days.
Newcastle and ACT Monaro have only met once before in a country divisional final, way back in 1977, and that controversial match won by the Southerners 33-13 will rekindle the intense rivalry between the capital and the Still City. Newcastle has had to battle hard to make the final, with a sluggish win over the North Coast and then a last-minute win over Northern Rivers, Kevin Maher scoring a vital try. Led by the experienced Craig Higgins, the local team is full of talent, including former Raiders Paul Beath and Phil Carey, who will be keen to lock horns with old teammates. ACT Monaro has defeated Riverina and Southern Division, and their team is strong and experienced. Michael Twigg is in great form, as is Brett Atkins and winger Corey Stewart. The clash at Townsend Oval at 3 on Sunday is set to shake the rafters of the Green Room.
Wearing a patch over one eye, Arafat was greeted by well-wishers in Tripoli after leaving hospital. The bodies of 3 crewmen killed in the crash were taken to the Libyan capital today. They'll be buried as heroes after ramming the plane's nose into a sand dune to cushion the impact for those passengers in the rear. A fire at a munitions dump in Armenia has set off a series of massive explosions. The chain reaction of blasts went on for at least 6 hours. No one has dared go close enough yet to find out how it happened. Shells rained down on 2 nearby towns, forcing thousands to be evacuated. A handful of people were injured, but amazingly, no one was killed. Locals want to build a 40-bed aged hostel on this site at Riverside Gardens. The government has given $1.3 million towards the project, but $750,000 is still needed. Today they held a special barbecue to mark the community launch of the fundraising campaign. So far, $320,000 has been pledged, but there's still a long way to go. Organisers say it will take around 12 months to raise the amount required. According to Hugh Waugh, chairman of the Special People Who Care campaign, 61 names are already on the waiting list for the hostel, an indication of how important the project is. The first section of soil was turned today and work will begin soon. It's hoped the hostel will open in January.
It was all glitz and glamour as fans ushered in a new era of basketball in the Still City. Everett Stevens grabbed the first points for the locals, and at the other end, Terry Dozier was all fired up in defence. The Giants found their stride, Reedy with a long three-pointer, and the Iceman Darryl Pearce the same to give North Melbourne a 10-point lead at quarter time. Needing inspiration, Captain Al Green fired up and let Bruce Palmer know what he thought of their little battle. And the Falcons combined well to narrow the gap. But right on the buzzer, Pearce and Fisher hit 3-pointers to hold a lead of 4 at Oranges. Everett Stevens was proving a handful for the Giants' defence with his fancy footwork, but the feeling in the match surfaced, Dozier giving Ray Bourner a quick facial after being fouled. West pressed the Cheetahs line for a fair part of the first half until Waratah rebounded against the run of play, and good backing up saw them touch down under the sticks and apply some of their own pressure. But the Rosellas bounced back as good teams do, and their smart backline finished off some excellent moves. Tim Morrison on the end of this one. From there, the Western Suburbs outfit was never headed, and they charged away to win handsomely 30 points to 14 to send a signal to the rest of the Tooheys Newcastle competition that they are going to be a force to be reckoned with once again this year. At Marathon Stadium today, a slice of history. For the first time in the Winfield Cup, the three junior Knights teams played at the same venue on the one day. And what a day it was for the Red and Blues. The under-15 Harold Matthews won 26-6, the SG Ball defeated Manly 22-16, and the Knights jersey flag side capped off a great day, beating the Sea Eagles 26-14.
Police say the car glanced off another vehicle after they collided at traffic lights at the Maitland Road intersection. The vehicle leapt the curb and slammed into a plate glass shop front. The other car ended up in the middle of the intersection. Shopkeepers say the corner is notorious for crashes.
In here you're used to hearing crashes all the time, so I usually just come out to see if they're all right, and this is the worst crash I've ever seen here.
An elderly woman passenger was transported from the scene suffering shock and minor abrasions. No one else was hurt. A more challenging task for tow truck operators at Throsby Creek near the Carrington Bridge, where surprised leisure boaters reported a car in the shallows below the boat ramp. Police quickly established that no one was in the vehicle, which had been reported stolen yesterday. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
The fellow with the diamond on his T-shirt is Gavin Cadwell. He's Australia's #1 under-19s player. Cadwell, along with 15 others, is vying for selection in the national junior squad. Later this year, that team will head off to Hong Kong for the World Championships. No shortage of talent, selectors have some whittling to do.
3-man team to go away, so it's pretty cutthroat.
The Wall's End tournament is but one of a series of selection trials. At the same time, the Junior Championships are underway, 170 entries. On court today, Heidi Mather and Melanie Watson in the under-15s, both from Curry, ranked 2nd and 3rd nationally. Two boys from Raymond Terrace are expected to do well, Dean Bartlett in the under-15s and Adam Crowfoot in the under-11s. The finals will be played tomorrow.